I don't normally talk about political topics because it usually just makes people mad at each other about stupid things. But for this video, I wanted to try something different and talk about something I find interesting. And I'm fully prepared to take any backlash I may receive for voicing my opinions. I don't go on the internet that much, but recently I've learned about a growing trend of female content creators known as traditional wives or tradwives. Their increasing popularity has a lot of people upset. Apparently there's more than meets the eye to some of these tradwives, at least according to the media. I searched tradwives on Google without any other context, and these were some of the first results. What is a tradwife? These controversial women are drawing attention and opinions. Tradwives are using social media to romanticize a return to traditional values as more and more women face post-COVID work-life balance burnout. Tradwives promote a lifestyle that evokes the 1950s, but their nostalgia is not without controversy. Tradwives, the new trend for submissive women, has a dark heart and history. Tradwives push back against critics who say their viral homemaking lifestyle is alarming and creepy. Tradwives claim feminism ruined everything. They're wrong. Capitalism did. I'm a conservative Catholic mom. Tradwives promote unrealistic stereotypes. Is tradwife content dangerous or just stupid? For some, being a tradwife is about more time with family. For others, it's a dangerous far-right ideology. Tradwives, the housewives commodifying right-wing ideology. The housewives of white supremacy. I read all of these articles, and not just the headlines, and they all kind of say the same thing. Hot white woman is sus. In this video, I'm going to go over the common complaints that people have with tradwives, and why people are mad just to be mad. Starting with everyone's favorite, white supremacy. Tradwives believe in rejecting a career in the workforce in favor of staying at home to serve their husbands and their children. They choose to prioritize motherhood and wifehood over everything else. Most tradwives live by conservative, often Christian-based values and beliefs. The most common complaint with tradwives that I've read is that there's a small subsection of them who use their content to promote alt-right ideology, including white supremacy. You might come for the calming visuals of someone kneading sourdough and pouring milk from one big glass container into another big glass container, without realizing that you're actually consuming covertly white nationalist content. Nicole Jorgensen, a singer and former school teacher in North Dakota, explains to her host that she has never been happier since marrying and having children. It soon becomes clear that Miss Jorgensen is advocating something sinister, not just a return to agrarian motherhood. Many others have deemed the trend alarming, frightening, creepy, a too-good-to-be-true alternative to life, a way to cheat your way out of hard work, a form of anti-worker activity similar to union busting, and even a white supremacy concept. Tradwife content, particularly on a platform like TikTok, can be dangerous because it can usher folks down pipelines to more extremist ideology and ways of thinking. While tradwives are already a niche subculture, an even smaller fraction of them are using tradwife content to spread more insidious ideas, says Ann Kelly, a journalist and researcher with expertise in anti-feminist and far-right digital cultures. Kelly describes the overlap between tradwives and far-right movements as something of a Venn diagram. While there are some tradwives, including women of color, who simply hold conservative beliefs on the roles men and women should occupy in relationships, she said some on the alt-right use tradwife aesthetics to recruit white women into the movement. Such influencers promote a contempt for modernity and feminism, as well as a desire for an idealized and implicitly coded white past. In the US and elsewhere, it is very much part of the alt-right movement. It is especially popular among white supremacists, who are extremely down with the message that white women should submit to their husband and focus on making as many white babies as possible. The belief is that tradwives are using their content to bait white women into joining the alt-right and to promote white nationalist views, while disguising it in content featuring homemade bread and milky white cleavage. As one source states, these white women are viewed as being dangerous because they can use their alluring feminine charms and soft voices to spout alt-right ideology without being explicit. Basically, the media believes that tradwives are a gateway drug into the alt-right, baiting you with their home-cooked meals, luscious blonde hair, and ample bosom. The true alt-right tradwives are just a small fraction of the already small tradwife community, but whenever there's even just a drop of alt-right blood in the ocean of content, The media swarms around it like sharks, especially white journalists. A lot of the writers and people interviewed for these articles specialize in tracking the growth of alt-right digital content. Some of them even have a PhD in this shit. Is it white guilt? Are you trying to prove you're one of the good ones? Not like those other whites, am I right? Or are you hiding something? Of course, there's nothing wrong with wanting to keep an eye on this, but personally, I don't feel threatened. And I'm not white. Though tradwives are a small subculture and alt-right tradwives an even more fringe group, Kelly said it's worth paying attention to how tradwife rhetoric has trickled into the mainstream. The complex subculture is marginal, but growing. Still, far-right politicians have embraced that way of life. Whether this group will influence an election is anyone's guess. Tradwives may seem like a lunatic fringe at present, but they may not stay one for long. Still, tradwives remain worth contemplating because they help illuminate some of the forces that drive the alt-right and where the movement might be going. Although it's supposedly a growing community, the alt-right is never going to be the popular opinion, so why is this such a big deal? I think it's because most of the tradwives that people are talking about look like this. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and big boobs. Ah yes, the 3 Bs of white supremacy. If you're white and beautiful, I guess people just assume that you're a white supremacist thirst trap. But what about the tradwives who are not white? Some of the articles I read briefly mentioned that there are tradwives of color and that they share a lot of the same conservative religious values as the white tradwives. Laura, who has Egyptian and Greek heritage, says her version of tradwife doesn't include racism, inequality, or any other extreme ideology. Rather than support ideas of dominant men and subservient women, she argues the two should work together as a team. So then maybe race is not the major issue that people have with tradwives. It sounds more like people are critical of the conservative religious views of tradwives. There was only one article I could find that actually focused on tradwives of color. Black tradwives say marriage is the key to escaping burnout. While most of these tradwives are white women, a growing number are black women, many of whom say that traditional marriage is the key to black women's liberation from being overworked, economic insecurity, and the stress of trying to survive in a world hostile to our survival and existence. Kayla McGugan, who posts about biblical womanhood on her TikTok, makes the distinction between traditional marriage and what she refers to as biblical marriage. And both of the black tradwife creators cited in the article are religious, similar to the majority of white tradwives, and they all share a lot of the same conservative beliefs when it comes to marriage, children, and a woman's place in the home. This includes putting full trust in your husband and being submissive to him. I'll talk more about submissiveness a little later. There's a lot to get through. Let's stay on white supremacy for now. In addition, there are creators like Brooke Hicks Nelson who use their platform to make light of the black women in America who didn't have the privilege of staying at home to raise their own children. Historically, black women were forced to serve white families as nannies or laundresses, for example. During chattel slavery, black wives and mothers were not allowed the legal benefits of either marriage or parenthood, nor were they allowed the ability to stay home. During Jim Crow, many black women were forced to work instead. I think it's important that we, as black women, embrace a position within our homes that we were not afforded for so long. Black women were forced to work outside their home and incentivized by the US government to remain unmarried. From this perspective, being a tradwife can be seen as kind of empowering for women of color. Why aren't more people talking about that? Why are you only focusing on the white tradwives? And why are tradwives seen as the enemy? One source even mentioned that we shouldn't be painting all tradwives with the same brush because not all of them are bad. Dr. Campion cautions against denouncing all tradwives as far-right extremists, holding them accountable for views they may not hold, and demonizing what is, for many women, an extremely personal choice. She says understanding how to distinguish between the different tradwife iterations is important in order to not overgeneralize and create a suspect community where it's not warranted. You can be a tradwife and not be a far-right tradwife. Yawning or Janning cautions against tying the tradwife trend to a single cause. Some tradwives might create content because they want to promote old-fashioned values, while others might use it to perpetuate white supremacist and conservative views. Not all tradwives are far-right extremists. There's this idea that tradwives have a sinister intent of white supremacy, but there's tradwives of every ethnicity and race online. Of all the articles I read, there are very few examples of specific tradwife content creators who are actually alt-right. The most frequently and briefly cited problematic creator I read about was Wife with a Purpose, particularly referring to a 2017 white baby challenge she posted, reportedly. There's no evidence available at this time, where she encouraged women to have as many white babies as possible. Yikes. Most of her past content has been removed, and if you go to her website, she says that she has no affiliation with white supremacy and that she's been deplatformed for no reason that was given to her. Her most recent post on Instagram at the time of recording this has this long caption about how she's been cyberbullied and cyberstalked for years. She still has support from some online fans, but based on her media attention, I think most people's first reaction to her is this.
Aw, poor little white racist snowflakes. A, if you are an ignorant asshole that is attacking Black or Asian people, you deserve to lose jobs and friends and have your sane family members turn on you. And B, journalists can't make up lies when it is on video.
Regardless of what you think of Wife with a Purpose, people shouldn't be stalking her or sending her and her family death threats. I know I'm gonna sound like an alt-right sympathizer, but hear me out. I just don't like seeing people get ganged up on if not all the facts are available to us. Without having all the facts, all we can do is speculate. Wife with a Purpose seems like a very religious mother and wife, and perhaps she was raised in a very conservative, closed-off environment, and she said some things on the internet that sounded really bad to the rest of the world, which got her canceled and kicked off several online platforms. Just trying to give this woman the benefit of the doubt because I don't know her and I couldn't find any of her controversial content, but it just sounds like taking pride in her whiteness is what got her canceled. I can take pride in my mixed heritage of Chinese, Hispanic, and Native American, but if you're white and you want to take pride in being white,
Don't.
I don't know how you can take pride in your whiteness without it sounding racist. I don't know if Wife with a Purpose is a white supremacist. Most of her Instagram posts are just about family and religion, which I guess some people can take the wrong way. Tradwife Original, however, who is cited by ABC Australia, has some very questionable content on her Instagram. The example shown in ABC's article is an Instagram post of a photo that says, "We have all the diversity we need," with 4 white women with varying hair colors standing next to each other. I think that's a lot worse than a white baby challenge. Tradwife Original responded to this on her Instagram twice, trying to clarify that the intention for the original post was about preserving the nuclear family. But to anyone scrolling through, the photo comes off as exclusionary to non-whites because the only people in the photo are white. Also, how does this photo represent the nuclear family? I don't know where you grew up, but the nuclear family is not for white women. I think this comment from another user raises a good point.
Not at all ashamed of my white heritage or my family's lineage, and don't think anyone else should be, but this really does seem to say if you aren't white, you aren't welcome. There are people of all walks of life who may subscribe to a more traditional Christian family model who don't happen to have white skin, and this kind of message says they're not welcome. Wouldn't the evangelical model be trying to bring other walks of life into the fold rather than try and be an exclusive club based on something people are born into rather than social choices? This is why we send missionaries to foreign countries and is the foundation of Protestantism. Sorry, I can't support this movement if this is what it says. I'm a Christian and a conservative, but this is type of thing that gives meat to the left claim that Christians are hateful and bigoted. Maybe it wasn't intended to say this, but it definitely does to someone just scrolling through.
Because I fell down a rabbit hole while researching for this video, I dug through Tradwife Original's Instagram trying to find the original post to get some clarification, and I managed to find it after scrolling through 3 years of content. So in the original post, there is no caption provided, and there's no mention of the nuclear family. So this is still sus. And then I looked at the comments section where I found this little exchange.
I don't see this as racist, and at the same time, I see where people are coming from. Just because there isn't a POC in the picture doesn't mean she's racist. I really think some of you are taking this really wrong. And if I'm incorrect, I hope the lady that runs this page gives more insight as to what's being stated. And then OP says, giving insight, apologizing, or not daring to say what you think has led us to this current woke extreme world. So think about this picture what you will. I like it and think it is just beautiful. It's not the image that's the problem, it's the caption. By saying, we have all the diversity we need, as a person of color, you're saying to me, my daughter whose hair hangs beautifully too and wears pretty dresses I make for her is not wanted. Not needed, the text on the image, it's just unnecessary and mean and hurtful. How can you pretend not to be able to read the message in this post? I'm not pretending, I really don't see this as hateful. That's like saying Black Lives Matter is mean and hurtful because it didn't say Mexican Lives Matter. Like, come on. Us POC have a section on every platform dedicated to us. How do you think the rest of the ethnicities feel? Saying Black Lives Matter is stating a fact, and not the same as saying only Black Lives Matter. And then the same user posted directly after, I forgive you. You live in Arkansas. Be blessed. And that's where it ends.
So I guess we can only speculate at what tradwife original meant to say when she originally posted this photo. And she even says that she's very careful about what words she chooses. Seems a little shady. To me, it comes off as being exclusionary to non-white groups. Seems a little racist. Along the way of searching for this post, I found some other very questionable content. Again, trying to be fair to everybody, trying to give this lady the benefit of the doubt. She could just be very proud of her white European lineage. Like, very proud. But the way she does it sounds like she's saying white power. A lot of her posts suggest that she's against interracial marriage and anti-immigration and pro-preserving the white race. Some of her posts also come off as performative, trying not to sound racist, but come on. Tradwife Original may very well be a white supremacist. I figured we had to find at least one. There are bound to be some extremists in the community, and in every community. Duh. But the majority of tradwives are not white supremacists, especially the more popular ones, like S.D. Williams. I'll talk more about her later in the video. And there are probably a lot more tradwives of color than we think. Yet they don't get as much attention in the media. Maybe they're just not posting their trad life on social media as much, or at all. Maybe they're just living it. Offline. Because of the negative media attention and alt-right accusations, some tradwives no longer use the tradwife label. For example, Madison Dastrup is a creator who used to identify as a tradwife, but she no longer uses that term because she doesn't want to be associated with the bad tradwives.
Dastrup said that while she still upholds traditional values, she doesn't wish to associate herself with controversial TikTok personalities whose content supports white supremacy and disregards sexual consent in marriage. I think there's obviously going to be racist people in the world, and maybe there are a few in the movement, but there are just racist people everywhere. Although Dastrup no longer labels herself as a tradwife, she said there are still misconceptions about tradwives believing their lifestyle choice is the only way to be. People love to twist your words, but really, it's just what works for your own family.
Another tradwife who was called out in my research is known as Gwen the Milkmaid.
Are you talking about Marie Antoinette?
Yeah.
I heard a thing or two about her. Is a seat taken?
Oh, it's not really a seat.
I watched every one of her TikToks, actively looking for anything that could be perceived as alt-right, but it was like grasping at straws. Other than being kind of basic, there's nothing about her that comes off as being overwhelmingly white to me, despite what the cut thinks. It's just conservative. That's not exclusive to white people. Neither is homesteading, which is what the majority of her content is about. I'd say the most problematic content on Gwen's TikTok is her saying she doesn't trust the government or Big Pharma, and that she wants to make friends who will join her in farm living. Although these viewpoints raise a few red flags, they aren't beliefs that are exclusive to the alt-right. And according to the Global Network on Extremism and Technology, she's a mix of conservative and alt-light. Many far leftists also don't trust the government, Big Pharma, or vaccines. And they also want to live in a commune with other like-minded people and grow their own food. There's a lot of overlap between the extremes on both sides of the political spectrum. They're both countercultural, just maybe in slightly different ways. Y'all have a lot more in common than you think. Most of Gwen's content shows her making food from scratch, mostly sourdough, and twirling in a garden with flowers. She regularly expresses wanting to buy land so she can home birth, homeschool, and homestead. Nowhere in her content did I find anything that was nationalist or in favor of white supremacy. The comments on her TikToks are also very diverse. Some people relate to her and support her goal of farm living, while other people are mad. And some people aren't sure if she's real.
Okay, following. This is my dream, but I've been too scared to start this journey. I'll start with a garden because I love gardening. Thank you, I needed some inspiration. My dream, without the God and kids part though. Feminism is about having the choice left all to yourself. Whether a career or not, I would personally love this lifestyle. It's good to see a happy housewife. Enjoy the best years of your life. Can't relate, but that's amazing for you. I feel so sorry for you. Fake trad. Another thirst trap cleavage dress, I see. You're literally just cosplaying. And put on a full face of makeup and did your hair. How authentic. Hope this isn't what you meant in conservatives being right, because, I mean, us liberals believe in this too. I think you might be a communist. As long as you don't impose your religious views on other women, we can all coexist in peace. It depends on what you want. I want to raise a family, but I don't want a husband, nor do I want to stay at home. And everyone wants something different. Girl, what? Thanks Satan, I have a normal-ass relationship with a kick-ass career. Hope you get better, girly. I feel like you just make a bunch of videos knowing you'll get hate because you're bored and locked up in that house all day, so this is your entertainment. I am so deeply invested in this girl's Delulu TikTok account. Babe, are you okay? This is a joke, right? It's satire. No, it isn't. No? Is this account real? This is a satire page, right? This looks like a simulation. Why are you moving like you're animated? This has to be a joke, right? This account is def satire. It's alt-right fetish content. You're the only one seeing it as a fetish.
The Cut is concerned that she's trying to recruit you to her political side, but I think the main reason she wants you to join her is because she can't afford to buy farmland on her own.
I swiped my debit card, the cashier told me that it was declined. That made me cry.
I think she's just a lonely, aspiring homesteader with some questionable views on vaccinations. I don't think Gwen the Milkmaid is a white supremacist. Regardless, people feel personally attacked by her content.
Maybe if you stopped pushing extreme ideologies, you'd make some friends. I pray that one day you realize you can be happy with your life without having to impede the rights or needs of others. God bless. You could do all this without cosplaying an evil Christian tradwife, you know? Okay, speak for yourself, girly. Make working women feel bad. Nice. So men can have careers, but women can't? Maybe you want that, but don't speak for everyone and act like we all share one mind, bro. Aw, I hate when women actually want things other than serving men. Hashtag feminine, hashtag I hate rights, hashtag milkmaid, hashtag brainwashed.
So what have we learned so far? Tradwives may be appealing to the alt-right, but that doesn't mean that they're alt-right themselves. Evil people can like non-evil things. I think that the tradwife values just unfortunately align with a lot of alt-right values. Oops. Next section. Too cute to be realistic for everyone. Another common criticism of tradwife content is that it romanticizes a past, particularly the 1950s, when being a housewife was glamorized. And because houses only cost like $40,000, a lot of men could support himself, his wife, and his 5 kids on a single salary. As a result, married women were basically guaranteed a job of doing housework and childcare, while their husbands worked a salaried job to financially support the whole family. But the truth is that being a traditional housewife has always been a financial privilege.
To cast as traditional, women's sole focus on domesticity and child rearing is ahistorical. It wasn't until America industrialized in the 1800s and labor moved off of farms and into cities that middle and upper class white women whose husbands earned enough to support their families began to define ladyhood as synonymous with distance from production. Australian women starting a family face some of the lowest paid parental leave in the world, as well as inaccessible childcare, job instability, and a housing affordability crisis.
Going back to what tradwives like Brooke Hicks Nelson and Laura Spencer have said, many women of color and poor white women didn't have the financial privilege of being a housewife. Even now, this lifestyle isn't very attainable for many couples and families for a variety of reasons. Not everyone can afford to stay home and do unpaid housework all day because most households can't survive on a single income. So when we see tradwives on TikTok posting about their traditional lifestyle and making the work look cute, we get articles online talking about how the cuteness is a problem because being too cute can come off as making a tradwife's work look too easy or too attainable, when the truth is that it's neither.
Young people will watch tradwives and think people will fall prey to an unrealistic ideal of simplicity. They make it seem easy, they make it seem beautiful, and every mother in the world knows that is not the reality. You could argue that by prettifying care, tradwives obscure how exhausting it really is, and reinforce outdated gender norms around who does what kind of work.
I do agree that we should take everything we see on social media with a grain of salt, because most content creators are only going to show us the ideal parts of their lives, which doesn't show us the whole picture. However, that doesn't mean that they're all miserable when the camera is off, or that they all have a hidden agenda.
I know what it's like to fall into temptation when you see other beautiful people on the internet and you want what they have. But remember, you are beautiful just the way you are.
Just because something on social media is a fantasy world to you doesn't make it wrong to exist. But what is wrong, according to these articles, is that the cute aesthetic is a mask for ideology.
She describes extreme tradwife views masked by aesthetically pleasing imagery as propaganda designed to be compelling, evocative, and gripping, and to convince people of a certain point of view. What is irksome about Instagram trad life isn't the question of How does she do it all? It's that the visual appeal overrides whatever ideology lives in the background. They've also stoked predictable controversy because of their embrace of old-fashioned feminine ideals, such as submissiveness to husbands and stay-at-home motherhood.
This circles back to the alt-right accusations. But I still think it's mostly rooted in religious conservative values and not white supremacy. In Christian culture, outward appearance is very important because taking care of yourself is honoring God with your body or whatever. I personally don't follow any religion, but I don't think it's wrong for other people to be religious. People should believe in whatever they want, especially if it helps them become a better person or find enjoyment in life, as long as they're not shaming other people for not having that same belief. And I don't think it's fair to get mad at someone for wanting to look pretty, whether or not it's rooted in religious values that you may not agree with. Some content creators just want to look pretty and feminine. To them, they feel good when they look good. For example, I'll refer to a content creator known as With Love Christina. I don't know if she's religious, and I don't know if she identifies as a tradwife, but she creates content centered around being a housewife and mother of 5 while adopting vintage fashions and routines. She dresses this way because it's her personal taste.
I love when you get dressed up and people are like, whoa, where are you going? What's the special occasion? The occasion is that I exist. It's an ongoing thing, and I think that's pretty special.
Dressing this way also reinforces the old-fashioned housewife values that she tries out in her videos. In her YouTube video titled Cleaning Like a 1950s Housewife, A Day in the Life of a 1950s Mother, Christina tells us the recommended morning routine to pretty up.
In the Bride's Reference Book of 1948, the author notes especially that a bride should never skip her 10 minutes at sunup. After hanging her sleeping clothes and donning a pretty robe, the housewife should give a quick brush to her hair, splash her face with cold water, brush her teeth, and apply lipstick to have an overall neat appearance before making coffee. The direct quote, which I found really funny, is, "Don't weaken and start the coffee first, or soon you will cease to bother going back to pretty up. There lies the downward path from beautiful bride to disheveled wife."
Her beauty routine is the part of her day devoted to self-care, which she believes to be very important.
It's so quick to do, and it really is effective at making you feel put together, and it's not super complicated, doesn't take a long time. And I honestly always felt so much better once I had done this quick little makeup routine.
In another video she made, she also mentions that looking nice for her husband is something that she enjoys doing because it makes their time spent together feel more special.
And I think I want to try doing this more often to kind of dress up and greet my husband, because it just makes it feel like a much more special evening to sit down and have a quiet drink while the kids go play in their room before we get on with the busyness of making dinner in the rest of the evening.
That's why people dress up before they go out for date night. It's the same thing here, except they're just staying at home. They're the ones who are getting enjoyment out of it. It doesn't have to be for anyone else. Looking at the comments of Christina's videos, they're mostly wholesome and positive, in contrast to the comments on some other tradwife creators.
I remember the kid side of the 50s housewife thing. It was the aroma of fresh perked coffee, and my mother singing to the radio as she worked, i.e. swept the floors, washed breakfast dishes, etc. Such warm, fuzzy memories. The coffee cooking always gets me back there. I remember those days of endless cleaning and chores. A mother's work is never done. You have your hands full, but you are doing it with style and grace and thoughtfulness. Remember to take those important moments for yourself to recharge. What a wholesome video. I've always loved the 50s fashion style, and your outfits and hair did not disappoint one bit. Very inspiring and entertaining. I loved this. Really brought back great memories my grandma did that the modern woman does not anymore. This was really interesting, and I loved how the mother was strongly encouraged to take time for herself. I have 3 kids and work 4 days a week from home. I never feel that I'm doing enough or that I deserve to take time to do things I enjoy. So that permission for want of a better world is just, well, nice.
Getting back to something I mentioned earlier, one of the most reported on tradwives is S.D. Williams. Her views are conservative, but she makes it clear that she's not trying to indoctrinate anyone or bash anyone who chooses differently than her.
I'm not coming online shaming anybody for who they love or how they choose to live their life, she says. I simply showcase mine. I don't want to threaten anybody's lifestyle, but I'm also not going to diminish my own light because that might threaten somebody else's lifestyle. This lifestyle is a return to a model of the family that was common in the 1950s. The husband goes out to work and the wife stays home to do domestic work. Williams says tradwives aren't attempting to dismantle women's right to work, but that this is a choice made by individual women who believe a wife's role is to be a homemaker.
She's expressing her own opinions and letting us know that she's happy with the personal choices that she made for herself. She's often said that she's even tried having a traditional career like everyone else, but that it was stressing her out too much and it didn't align with her goals of becoming a wife and mother.
Though she always knew she wanted to be a mom, she said she felt pressured to pursue a career, taking on a challenging course load in college while also working a job. But Williams said balancing it all was exhausting, and she realized she didn't want to experience the stress that her mother did as a single working parent.
The truth is, there is no higher calling than being a wife and a mother for a woman. Now, let me make this crystal clear. I am not undermining any woman who wants a career. If you want a career along being a wife and a mother, that is great. It is a personal choice. And this is where I say I appreciate working mothers and wives. I do not bash any woman who wants a career. And no homemaker should bash any woman and vice versa. The tradwife movement has nothing to do with any of these things listed.
Okay, good for her for trying out different options and finding the path that makes her happy. How do people respond?
You are despicable. You just said there is no higher calling for a woman than wife and mother. I'm a woman. I do not want to be. You 100% undermine women who don't wish to mother children or caretake their spouse by stating there's no higher calling than motherhood. Yup, submitting to every power structure there is. So powerful, yay. The trad wife gave from the lack of rights for women. You are playing a role without facing the oppression and lack of choice. It's frustrating.
Frustrating. Frustrating.
Can we just call this what it is? It's a kink. It's a kink. It's a kink. Tradwife is a literal white supremacist term. Fucking gross.
Good old internet comments. Excuse me. Can always rely on you to be interesting. SD Williams also states that the reason she dresses up is because it makes doing the work more fun. Similar to Christina, women dress up to go to work in an office and men wear suits and ties. So why is it weird for tradwives to dress up to work at home? What's wrong with wanting to look pretty when you work, even if it's just for yourself? Another tradwife says she likes the 1950s aesthetic because the 50s were a time when housewives were celebrated, unlike today. But because the 1950s were also a time of civil injustice for many people, the media wants to focus on what was bad about the 50s. But obviously that's not why the tradwives embraced the 1950s lifestyle.
A tradwife doesn't want to go back to the 1950s, but she simply likes that time because it was the last time her occupation was celebrated in mainstream media.
They just like the old-fashioned conservative aesthetic and routines, not the oppressive politics. But of course, people want to focus on the negative parts of the past and not as much on the positive. We get it, history was bad, we learned from it, now we're moving on. Continuing on, tradwives are also largely criticized for financially relying on their husbands. To be able to devote your time to being a tradwife, you have to be with a man who can support you financially. Some people twist this into saying that choosing a traditional lifestyle condones women to staying in abusive relationships.
For Adams, there's a worry that the messaging behind tradwife accounts could lead viewers to abusive relationships, to appease their partners, and learn that submission is the pathway to survival.
The concern is that if women are seeking out men for financial stability, it could lead them to the wrong kind of men who will abuse them and treat them poorly. And because these women need to financially rely on their husband to be a tradwife, they'll stay in the relationship even if it means taking abuse.
Where do people get that traditional marriage entails a wife being beaten? Being financially dependent on someone who turns out to be an abuser does indeed further domestic violence. Sorry, but being financially dependent on anyone else is just foolish. It shows naivety, not trust.
Despite what's in the comments section, no tradwife is endorsing women to stay with their abusive partners. No one is saying that. When tradwives talk about their ideal husband, they always mention that he should be a man that you trust, respect, and feel protected by. Not someone who makes you feel lesser than or unsafe. And definitely not someone who makes you do anything you don't want to do.
Even though she believes in wives being submissive to their husbands, McGugan says she tries to discourage abuse in her role as a content creator. I'm usually very careful in my TikTok posts to make a conscious effort to point out that my advice on submission is for women in healthy marriages with husbands who love and care about their total well-being, physical, mental, emotional. My advice would be to first understand that submission requires a trust that your husband will lead you towards safety and not harm. Prioritize your safety and do what you need to do to protect yourself and your children. Submissive doesn't equate to weak, and a good husband would never put his wife below him.
There are also people who think tradwives are delusional about their happy lives and that the dress-up element plays into that delusion. I think it's because a lot of tradwives don't usually talk about the stressful parts of being a tradwife. but sometimes they do. Christina talks about how being a tradwife is tiring and sometimes stressful, especially since she has children. But she also understands that the reality is that not everyone is going to have the same level of cuteness in their home because everyone's situation is different.
I started comparing myself to other YouTubers that I found who've done 50s weeks, and they were far more aesthetic than me and far more cute, and their houses were cute, and it got to me. I don't think I've ever found a YouTuber who had kids and has done a 1950s week, so I have that going for me, I guess.
She also opens up and becomes vulnerable when talking about the stressful parts of motherhood.
There is no magic secret to getting dressed with kids. Really, it's just about prioritizing yourself a little bit and realizing that you deserve to feel good, you deserve to look good, you deserve that time to yourself, and it's okay to take that time for yourself. And I know that it's so hard, especially when you have little kids. It's very hard to get up early. Sometimes you are just so exhausted that it's not worth it, and it's okay. It's okay to not look great every day, but these are the things that I do because I've realized it really improves my day and my mood and my productivity and my life as a mom and my life as a wife, and just in general, it makes me happy, and so I do it.
It's like the more conventionally attractive the woman and the cuter the content, the more harmful it's perceived to be because it's not authentic to everyone's reality or financially attainable for everyone. Okay, but this is TikTok. It's social media where people go to get a glimpse into other people's lives. Someone else's life will look like a fantasy world to anyone who doesn't also live like that. And as human beings, we get enjoyment out of experiencing a fantasy, whether it's attainable or not. That's why we consume entertainment like novels, movies, TV shows, and celebrity news. And everyone handles stress differently. Just because it looks easier for some doesn't mean it's easy for everyone. Anti-feminist pits women against each other. People are critical of tradwife content because it seems to pit women against each other. No shit. In the Cut article, the author Catherine talks about how tradwives breathe new life into the mommy wars.
The mommy wars concept first appeared in Child magazine in the 80s, playing off social anxiety about the increasing number of mothers joining the workforce. According to the logic of the mommy wars, women who stay at home to raise their families are the natural enemies of women who leave for work.
I think it's ironic that she's even writing about tradwife content because even she and someone she interviewed says that the media created the problem.
We do not want to go back to the mommy wars. That was created by the media and it pitted women against each other. We're seeing the exact same dynamic today.
And obviously they're still perpetuating the conflict between housewives and career women. Maybe you can't have or don't want this lifestyle, but other women aren't you, and some of them do want this lifestyle. If women can find a trustworthy, respectable, financially stable man to marry, and if they can pull off doing 1950s housework and look like this while doing it, I say more power to them.
When people call you extra, just look them in their face and say, am I extra or are you basic?
People are always going to be tearing each other down, including women tearing down other women. We're catty bitches. Maybe it's just in our nature. To get back to something I mentioned earlier, tradwives are condemned by feminists for choosing to be submissive to their husbands and devoting their time to serve a man. Ah yes, serving a man. A feminist nightmare. Okay, so when I first heard the word submissive, I thought it sounded really bad, and I agreed with the feminists. I don't think women should be choosing to be submissive to another person. When I hear the word submissive, I think of succumbing to the will of another person and being weaker. Then I learned about how a tradwife like S.D. Williams defines submissiveness.
Tradwives also believe that they should submit to their husbands and serve their husbands and family, and that triggers people because the words submit and serve, it makes women think that we're saying that we're less than a man. That's not what we're saying. Tradwives just believe that they are here as women for a different role, equally as important though. No tradwife TikTokers are saying every woman's place is in their home. We as individuals are just choosing to be homemakers. That's all.
Okay, so it's all about personal choice. I may not agree with it, but if women are choosing to be submissive and it works out positively for them, then that's fine. As long as they're not being submissive to a person who's gonna hurt them. However, my criticism would be, if you see yourself and your husband as equals, then I don't think submissiveness is the right word. It's just dividing up the work. So submissive is not the word I would use, unless you want to troll the feminists. Like Tradwife Original, a lot of her content is just trolling the libs. Clearly, feminists have a problem with women choosing to be submissive. However, tradwives gained popularity in part because it was a response to women feeling let down by modern feminism.
Feminism started with choice. Now it's definitely gotten into this weird mix of all sorts of things. Some people have a problem with what I'm posting about my lifestyle, so it's clearly not all about choice anymore. In an age where progressivism is increasingly in the spotlight and the power of feminism is stronger than ever, women who do not fit into the mainstream have created an alternative space, promoting a counterculture fueled by anti-feminism and heteronormative traditional living. The tradwife persona offers women security and freedom to be content with a prioritization of traditional heteronormative gender. I do not consider myself a feminist. I think the very basic idea of feminism, equal rights for women, is great, but it's very tainted and it's very toxic, and even from the beginning, feminism was flawed. When talking about a famous suffragist, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Laura also says, her agenda of rights for women didn't actually include women of color. It was purely votes for white women. So no, I don't really like feminism. If I had to give myself a term, it would be egalitarianism. Egalitarianism is just the belief that every human deserves to be treated the same way. Todd says she believes the tradwife trend is partially a backlash to white feminism. White feminism has not always meaningfully addressed, centered, or valued black women. More and more black women on TikTok say they often feel they've been scammed by feminism and professional ambition, choosing instead to direct their energy towards championing the idea that a woman's place is in the home, cooking, cleaning, and raising children. The conversation between tradwives gets at the heart of some of the most relevant issues for women in 2022: burnout, domestic work, child rearing, and traditional femininity, which might explain why the conversation between tradwives and feminists keeps coming back to the timeline.
For some, the tradwife trend started because women felt like being a housewife was often overshadowed in modern mainstream culture by women who choose careers. And because housework is invisible, thankless, unpaid labor, nobody in current year is celebrating women for being housewives. The status quo for young women now is to go to college after high school and to pursue a career. But some women got burned out from pursuing a career and found solace in staying at home to do housework and take care of their families. Staying at home during the pandemic contributed to some of this. As people got laid off work, a lot of women had time to stay at home and bond with their children and to do housework. Some women discovered that they actually preferred being a homemaker or stay-at-home mom, which is considered to be more of a traditional old-fashioned lifestyle. However, every woman has her own story. Laura Spencer and a woman named Rebecca are two tradwives who discovered their career preferences by trying out both routes.
Aside from teaching and caring for her children, Laura cooks, cleans, sews clothes for her family, and tends to their vegetable patch. She considers these tasks a way of expressing love, and she is happier in this lifestyle than in her first few years of parenthood, in which she continued to work and study. Perth-based mother Rebecca, who prefers not to share her full name, lived as a tradwife for several years before deciding to change her life. She identifies with the term more than the subculture. Initially, she was happy. Her husband already owned a house, and she considers herself fortunate that the family was able to live off one income. Over time, she found her workday never ended, and the load was oppressive. Her husband worked outside the home during the week and could enjoy leisure time when he came home. She began to feel stuck in a role that was not me, but was rather the logical conclusion of a very conservative upbringing. After becoming deeply unhappy, she finally accepted she needed to live a different life. She wanted to be a breadwinner, not a homemaker. Leaving the tradwife life was the right decision for her. I'm single, living on my own, working full-time, raising my daughter half the time. It's a very different life, and I'm actually happier, she says. It's hard work. It takes so much out of your body and soul and brain. I totally respect people who do it. I know it's just not for me. I'm of the view that if it's what you want to do, good on you. And if you want to support other women to do the same because they want to, good on you. We should respect each other's choices.
Another criticism I see online is that a tradwife will be screwed over if her husband ever decides to leave her. That's fair to consider, and I think many tradwives are aware of this possibility. And if they weren't, the internet made damn sure that they are now.
But what if something would happen to your husband and he couldn't work? What then? What is the plan if it doesn't work though, or it turns out to be not what you thought, like 80% of marriages? Then who do you depend on? What about if your husband dies? My husband died, and I was screwed.
People think it's dangerous and or stupid for a woman to rely entirely on her husband for financial security. Tradwives don't earn money, so when they need something, their husband pays for it. So if a tradwife's husband dies or decides to leave her, then the tradwife is essentially out of a job. But isn't that also true of anyone who works for a company? A lot of corporations like to use the word work family to describe their departments. But at any point, your boss or your company can screw you over by laying you off. In my opinion, being a housewife is a job just like any other job. Some tradwives don't think being a housewife is a job But it is. It's unpaid labor. Everyone who has a job, no matter where they work or who pays them, is at risk of losing the thing that gives them money. Some people have a work family, and tradwives work for their own family. Life is unpredictable, and everyone, including tradwives, should consider what they would do in the event of losing their job, or losing their husbands, or their husbands losing their job. Some tradwives consider these possibilities, while others don't want to think about it until the time comes. S.D. Williams, for example, has full faith that her husband will always be able to provide for her, just like how you have faith that your company won't lay you off. But if something happens, she says she'll cross that bridge when she gets to it.
This might be naive, but I didn't go into our relationship or our marriage with one foot in the door and one foot back out just in case. I didn't finish college to have it as a backup. I dropped it altogether to solely focus on my husband. I don't believe in a backup plan. I believe if something happens, you'll get through it.
Although working a job outside the home is not part of the trad life, being a tradwife content creator is kind of an outside job. It's an internet job and potentially a lucrative one. Some tradwife creators are able to monetize their content or sell products as a way to earn money for themselves. Others choose not to.
The movement, more generally, depends on savvy entrepreneurial women like these who, through their social media activities, classes, courses, advice books, and products, advocate and popularize tradwifehood as a desirable choice and identity. Making viral content and getting social media views is a legitimate career path for many, which begs the question, does TikTok count as working outside the home? Williams doesn't make money from her TikTok content. She rejects sponsorship offers in favor of sharing her purpose and message.
To summarize, in my own stupid opinion, is that the tradwife controversy is similar to how people view strippers. Both tradwives and strippers embrace their femininity, much to the dismay of many feminists.
Just an aside, maybe comparing tradwives to strippers isn't the best example, but it makes sense to me. I could see some people getting mad because some women are strippers out of financial hardship, while some women are housewives out of financial privilege. Women are strippers because they have to be, while other women are housewives because they get to be. But I'm not comparing their class status. I'm only comparing how they both heighten their femininity as part of their lifestyles.
Are strippers empowered women because they profit off of their femininity and sexuality? Or are they exploited, oppressed women who perpetuate the objectification of women's bodies? Are tradwives empowered because they use their femininity to nurture their husbands and families? Or are they oppressed because they're submissive to a man? It depends on who you ask. Everyone has a different take on it. Am I going to complain and try to tear down another woman because I think she's wasting her potential to do something else, something more respectable? No, that's stupid. Not all women have to strive to be doctors or CEOs to be successful. Those career choices are great for some women, but they aren't the best choices for every woman. A lot of tradwives are women who used to have careers in the workforce, but due to personal reasons, they chose to stay home and focus on being a housewife. And they feel empowered after making the personal choice to change their work lives for something that suited them better. Even though tradwives are choosing to stay at home and take care of their families, they're still working. Housework and homesteading is not all that easy. It's tiring and it takes all goddamn day. Some women want to run a business and other women just want to make bread. It's about personal choice and there's no wrong choice. I think being a homemaker or stay-at-home mom are jobs that are just as valid and important as any other job. People hire nannies, babysitters, housekeepers, and even personal chefs for these purposes. But if a woman decides to do these jobs herself and for her husband, instead of hiring someone else to do them for her, why are you mad? Tradwives are showing women that you can be happy and successful even if you choose to stay at home and not enter the workforce. There's a lot of societal pressure on women to go to college and pursue a career, but for some women, that's not the best choice. Historically, women have always worked, whether it was at home for her family or in an office for a company. So why do women choose the tradwife life or trad life? Some women want to lean into religious, conservative, old-fashioned values of motherhood and wifehood. Some women were burned out from having a career and found more enjoyment out of taking care of the home and bonding with their children. Some women create tradwife content to cope with their career burnout and to seek affirmation that they made the correct choice in becoming a tradwife. Other women want to learn about old-fashioned routines and try them out for themselves. And some women want to use their content to recruit you into the alt-right. There are all kinds of tradwives. Although I don't think the trad life is quite right for me, I can see why some women enjoy it. I spend more than 90% of my time at home, and I take pride in taking care of my living environment. I like to keep it clean, and I want to feel comfortable and safe in my own home, and that takes work. I also think clean is cute, and I like cute. When I was working a regular full-time job, I didn't have much time or energy to put love into making my home nice and cute. I felt like my job was robbing me of my time, even though I was getting paid. But I was getting paid to do something I didn't enjoy. And so in a way, I wished that my job could just be taking care of my home, being a stay-at-home homemaker. I live with my boyfriend, but he doesn't care as much as I do about cleaning. It's not that he's a slob, I'm just a clean freak. I'm like Levi from Attack on Titan.
全然なってない。すべてやり直せ。
I'm trying to let go of that obsessiveness though, and I do appreciate it when my boyfriend helps me with the cleaning and other housework that I can't get to. Although I'm the main homemaker here, I also work other jobs outside the home because I like to have my own money. I agree with S.D. Williams and other tradwives who believe that men and women have equal responsibilities in the home. And it's between you and your partner how you choose to divide up the work. One person can do all the housework while the other person works a job outside the home to earn money. Or if both of you work jobs outside the home, then you can split up the housework. In the end, it's all about personal choice and how well you work with your partner. Personally, I don't think we should be condemning women for choosing the tradwife way. I support women to make the choice of staying at home to take care of their families/home, or having a career in the workforce, or some mix of both. And ironically, the media is making the divide between tradwives and career women much worse. And I might be making it worse too by making this video, but I'm not telling you to get mad or to worry. That's up for you to decide. Bye.